A wealthy dad couldn't calm his deaf son until a 10-year-old stranger in a hoodie did the impossible mid-flight. Airplane astonished face. You ever been on a flight where everything feels fine until suddenly it turns into complete chaos? That's exactly what happened on a red-eye from Atlanta to New York, and trust me, this story will blow your mind. Imagine sitting in first class, thinking you've got everything under control, and suddenly, your world spirals into panic, screaming, and absolute helplessness. That was the scene when Mr. Thompson, a wealthy dad with more money than sense, realized his 10-year-old son, Hunter, who's deaf, was having a full-on meltdown midair. Now, Hunter wasn't just upset, he was terrified. The engines roared, the cabin lights flickered, and every passenger could feel the tension rising like an invisible storm. Mr. Thompson, sitting smug in his leather seat, kept scrolling through his phone, completely ignoring his son's screams, probably thinking, I paid for first class, someone else will deal with it. That's when everyone noticed her, a black girl, no older than 10, in a faded hoodie that looked like it had seen better days, quietly standing by the curtain that separated first class from the rest of the cabin. You could tell she had been observing the chaos for a while, sizing up the situation, and honestly, most people probably underestimated her. People in first class are used to entitlement and looks, and her hoodie screamed, I don't belong here, but her eyes told a completely different story, sharp, calm, and ready to act. She didn't need anyone's permission or approval. Without a word, she walked toward the panic-stricken boy, and I mean she didn't hesitate, like she knew something no one else in the cabin did. Mr. Thompson finally looked up, slightly annoyed that someone dared to approach his precious little angel without a golden invitation. Excuse me, miss, this isn't your seat, he said, his tone dripping with arrogance. But she ignored him. With just her hands, simple gestures, and a confidence that could silence a hurricane, she started communicating with Hunter. Everyone in the first-class cabin could feel it happening. The way she moved her fingers, the way her expressions shifted, something magical happened. Hunter's frantic movements slowed, his lips quivered as he tried to mimic her, and slowly, the fear that had gripped his tiny body started to melt away. The other passengers were watching in disbelief. A 10-year-old girl, in a hoodie that had probably been ignored and passed by thousands of eyes before, was calming a deaf child whose father, despite his millions, had no clue how to help him. And here's the kicker, Mr. Thompson was trying to intervene, fumbling awkwardly, trying to pull his son into his arms, but nothing worked. It was as if the girl had some secret code, a language without words, that unlocked calm in a storm of chaos. The tension in the cabin shifted from panic to awe, with murmurs floating between the rows. Who is she? How is she doing that? Is she even old enough? You could literally feel the power of someone underestimated proving the world wrong. And let me tell you, when Hunter finally locked eyes with her and started signing back, matching her movements, a hush fell over the cabin. Even the flight attendants stopped mid-step to watch, jaws dropped. People were taking out their phones, whispering to each other, because this wasn't just helping a kid, it was a masterclass in courage, empathy, and respect. The girl didn't stop there. She kept her calm energy, gradually teaching Hunter to mimic breathing exercises, simple hand signs to express fear, and even tiny gestures to communicate when he felt overwhelmed. And all this, without a single word. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson, who had been yelling and panicking moments ago, now had no idea what to do. His pride, his money, his entitlement, all of it couldn't fix the one thing his son needed, understanding and patience. It was humbling in a way that made the whole first-class cabin uncomfortable, but in the best possible way. You could literally see his ego shrinking, while the girl, quiet and composed, just did her thing, showing that empathy and skill don't come with a price tag. By the time the turbulence passed and the flight smoothed out, Hunter was laughing quietly, leaning into her gestures, finally safe and calm. People were whispering, staring, some even tearing up. It was raw, emotional, and real. And as the girl stepped back toward the curtain, you could see the shift in Mr. Thompson's expression, from arrogance to recognition, though I doubt he fully realized it yet. That single moment, that single act of bravery and kindness, was enough to teach the entire cabin a lesson about humility, judgment, and the true power of human connection. Now, before we continue, I need you to hit that like button and comment down below, what would you do if you were that girl? Could you stay calm while everyone else is panicking? I want to see your thoughts because this story is about to get even more shocking and emotional, and you won't believe what happens next when everyone in first class realizes just who this little girl really is. Stick around, because the ending is going to make your jaw drop. As the plane leveled out and the tension began to ease, everyone in first class kept stealing glances at the girl, like they were waiting for a trick or some hidden secret to be revealed. But she didn't rush, didn't seek attention, she simply stayed calm, radiating a quiet confidence that made you want to follow her lead. Hunter, now still trembling but visibly more relaxed, clung to her gestures, mimicking every movement as if he had finally found a lifeline in the middle of a storm. Mr. Thompson, whose pride had taken a serious hit, tried to reassert control, tapping his phone and muttering about the flight attendants needing to handle this, but even they were powerless. The magic, if you could call it that, was in the girl's hands, literally. Her fingers moved like a symphony, creating a rhythm that Hunter instinctively followed. And here's where things got even more unreal. The other passengers, initially skeptical and judgmental, began to notice subtle shifts in their own stress. You could see adults leaning back, exhaling deeply, and a few even smiling, because this little girl had managed to calm an entire cabin's anxiety without saying a single word. It was almost cinematic, the way her movements commanded attention while remaining gentle, precise, and empathetic. Some passengers, heads turned toward the window, realized they were gripping their armrests unnecessarily, nerves buzzing from turbulence and stress, and slowly began to relax, almost unconsciously copying her calm, measured motions. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson finally stood up, clearly frustrated that his son was connecting with someone else instead of him. "Why are you doing this?" he barked, his voice slightly cracking, betraying the fear he didn't want to admit he felt for his child. The girl paused for a second, looked straight at him with a steady gaze, and then went back to Hunter. No words, no explanations, just action, showing him exactly what real patience and understanding look like. Hunter's breathing slowed even more. He started to smile, tiny giggles escaping as he mimicked her gestures playfully. A few passengers laughed softly, relieved and amazed, and the atmosphere shifted completely. Mr. Thompson, wealthy, powerful, and used to being in control, now had to confront a reality he'd never experienced before. Sometimes money doesn't fix everything. The little girl, whose hoodie had once screamed, "invisible," was now the center of attention, the unspoken hero of the flight. And then it happened, the moment everyone had been waiting for, the moment that would cement this story forever. A young woman, probably in her late 20s, sitting across the aisle, whispered something, and suddenly, the girl's identity was about to be revealed. She wasn't just any kid. No, she was the daughter of a local community leader, someone who had spent years training in sign language, nonverbal communication, and crisis intervention. People in the cabin exchanged stunned glances, realizing that this little girl's calm wasn't luck, it was skill, dedication, and heart. Mr. Thompson's jaw dropped as the realization sank in. All his wealth, all his first-class perks, had done nothing to equip him for this moment. Meanwhile, Hunter now had a newfound confidence, his panic replaced by trust. He started responding to her signs with ease, giggling, pointing, and even trying to teach her a few of his own. The cabin erupted into quiet applause, passengers clapping softly for this incredible display of courage, patience, and empathy. Flight attendants, who had been tense and unsure, were now smiling, shaking their heads, amazed that a 10-year-old girl had taught them a lesson in human connection. And here's where the story hits another emotional note. The father, Mr. Thompson, finally sat down beside Hunter, not with arrogance, but with humility, asking gently, How did you do that? The girl simply smiled, shrugged slightly, and returned to her seat near the curtain, letting her work speak for itself. Hunter leaned over, hugging his dad briefly, then signing a small, thank you, to the girl, who winked back. It was a moment of pure human magic. Passengers started sharing whispers, some saying how embarrassed they felt for judging her by her appearance, others saying they had never seen someone so young display such composure. The lesson was clear. Courage, skill, and empathy have nothing to do with wealth, status, or first-class seating. The plane had transformed from a place of chaos and panic into a tiny sanctuary of understanding and connection, all because one underestimated girl refused to back down in the face of fear. And let me tell you, when the plane finally started its descent into New York, the energy in the cabin had completely changed. People were chatting softly, shaking hands, and even Mr. Thompson gave the girl a nod, a silent acknowledgement that he had been humbled, and that he had witnessed something rare, extraordinary, and completely unforgettable. And now, before I take you to the final jaw-dropping part of this story, I need you to hit that subscribe button and comment below. What would you do if you were sitting there? Could you stay calm when everyone else is panicking? Could you trust someone who doesn't look like they belong? Stick around, because the ending will leave you speechless, and you'll see exactly why some heroes come in the smallest, most unexpected packages. As the plane touched down in New York, the cabin erupted into quiet murmurs of admiration and disbelief, everyone still processing what they had just witnessed. Mr. Thompson, once the picture of arrogance, now sat with a humbled expression, glancing repeatedly at Hunter, who was buzzing with newfound confidence and excitement. The little girl in the faded hoodie, who had quietly walked through the storm and restored calm with nothing but her hands and her heart, remained near the curtain, her presence understated but unforgettable. People started whispering to each other, pointing out how remarkable it was that someone so young, so overlooked, had managed to do what hundreds of adults, including flight attendants and Hunter's wealthy father, could not. And it wasn't just Hunter who had been affected, the entire cabin had felt the shift in energy, the invisible wave of calm that spread with her every gesture. Mr. Thompson finally leaned over and spoke to his son, his voice soft and unassuming for the first time on the flight. Son, you did amazing back there. Hunter beamed, still signing in his small, precise movements, now confident, no longer panicked, and the father realized something crucial. His money could buy comfort, first-class seats, private jets, anything he wanted, but it could not buy understanding, empathy, or the skill to soothe someone's fears in a moment of crisis. And then came the moment that truly changed everything. The little girl, now recognized as the daughter of a local community leader and a trained expert in nonverbal communication, finally stood in the aisle. She gave a small, polite nod to Mr. Thompson, and suddenly the entire flight crew and passengers understood. They had just witnessed a rare act of courage and skill, a lesson in humility delivered by someone society had probably overlooked 100 times before. Mr. Thompson's pride had been shattered, not in a humiliating way, but in a way that forced reflection. He had to confront a truth that no amount of wealth could shield him from. Sometimes, the bravest, smartest, and most capable people are the ones you least expect. As the passengers began to gather their belongings, several stopped by to quietly thank the girl, expressing awe at her composure and expertise. Flight attendants, normally reserved and professional, smiled widely, calling her a mini miracle under their breath. Hunter tugged on her sleeve, signing, "Thank you," with all the sincerity a 10-year-old could muster, and she responded with a gentle wink, letting him know that he had done just as much by trusting her. Mr. Thompson, meanwhile, finally approached her directly, extending a hand in what felt like both apology and gratitude. I didn't know what to do," he admitted, his voice humble and unsure. The girl merely smiled, shook his hand lightly, and said, through her gestures, that everything was okay. It wasn't about him, it wasn't about status, power, or money, it was about connection, empathy, and understanding. As the passengers exited the plane, you could see their conversations buzzing with energy, recounting the story over and over, unable to believe what they had witnessed. Some were laughing softly, some were wiping tears from their eyes, and a few older passengers even admitted that they had learned a lesson about underestimating others. Hunter's father finally bent down and hugged his son tightly, whispering, "I'm proud of you, buddy," while also silently acknowledging the girl's role in the entire experience. And here's where the real shock comes in, when the media caught wind of the story, because yes, a few passengers had live-streamed parts of it, the footage went viral almost instantly. People were stunned, sharing screenshots and videos, amazed that a young black girl in a faded hoodie had done what thousands of adults had failed to do: calm a terrified child, teach a lesson in humility, and bring the entire plane together in a moment of collective awe. Comments flooded social media, praising her bravery, her skill, and her heart. News outlets picked it up as an inspiring story about empathy, courage, and the often overlooked heroes among us. And for Hunter, this moment transformed him too. He no longer saw his own limitations as obstacles but as challenges that could be overcome with the right guidance, patience, and trust. Mr. Thompson, meanwhile, became a different kind of parent, humbled and reflective, realizing that parenting isn't about money or status, it's about presence, patience, and learning from those who may not fit the mold of what society tells you is important. As for the little girl, she quietly returned home that evening, her hoodie still worn and a small smile on her face, completely unaware of the viral fame awaiting her, knowing only that she had done the right thing. And here's the takeaway for you watching this: heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds. Sometimes they're 10-year-olds in faded hoodies, sometimes they're strangers who step up when no one else can, and sometimes they're right in front of you, teaching lessons you never thought you'd need. If you've ever underestimated someone based on appearance, status, or background, think again. The next time someone shows courage, patience, or skill when you least expect it, recognize it, learn from it, and never forget it. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below about a time someone unexpected changed your life. Hit that like button if this story inspired you, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible real-life stories that will make you laugh, cry, and think differently about the world. And remember, sometimes the people we overlook are the very ones who hold the power to change everything.